Center here in Midrand. ENCA business anchor Devin Murugan joins us now from Gallagher Estate. So, you know, a wide-ranging speech there, Devin, but the level of detail, many of us, I suppose, were taken by surprise by that. And I suppose all along we've been talking about Tuma Mina, send me, and today it seems the message was South Africa first.
Yes, indeed, but he says not in an arrogant way. That's the president, Cyril Ramaphosa. You're quite right. I mean, there were some initiatives mentioned here. I mean, we could go through a list of them, Tulis. But of course, you know, some might say, did it really look at the structure of the economy? Well, just to mention a few here, you heard the initiative to drive local procurement. He mentioned a host of companies like Sappi and Standard Bank, Coca-Cola being one of them. Companies that have made specific commitments to buy local. Of course, there was also this issue of the finance component investing, or 100 billion rand over 5 years. That's at black businesses. So there was something specific about that, which was also good, Tulis.
Yeah, and we can go through some of them, Devin, because, you know, when you're hearing so much coming at you, you sort of need to take a step back and sort of look through what you've heard. Talk to me about this pledge to preserve existing jobs and create new ones. They didn't really use the language that people like Begin Chalinchali from Kosatu would have wanted to hear, the language of a moratorium on retrenchment. That's a compromise, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. I mean, you must have heard Begin Charlie speaking just before him, and I suppose that's exactly what you were alluding to. He used the term moratorium. He said that's what they demanded. I want to actually just break and shift attention here very quickly, Tulis, because Dr. Bernstein from the Center of Development and Enterprise joins me now. Anne, thanks very much indeed. First impressions, what did you think of the speech?
Well, look, the first thing is getting South Africans together to talk is a good thing. And the President's really committed to that. And he's harking back to the experience of building the Constitution. I think what's really important is the missing ingredient of leadership. You have to push the social partners to go beyond where South Africa's been before. So that's the one thing. The second is this is the start of the process, and I think that's good, that this is the beginning of a process, and the President seems really committed to taking this process further on an ongoing basis. That's positive. I think some of the things we've heard before, buy local and things like that. This is not going to drive the economy and jobs in a very big way. And funds for small entrepreneurs or black business, these funds are there already. That's not the issue. South Africa's big issue is creating a much more hospitable environment for firms to create and expand and for exports. And I didn't hear very much at all about policy reform and doing things different. So South Africans will go out and buy differently, whether they're firms or individuals, if the price is right and the quality is right. And people go on and on about buying local in their imported suits, and I never quite understand the point of this. At the end of the day, he's hoping that if all the initiatives they're going to announce, and we didn't hear everything today, actually are implemented well, we could get an additional 275 jobs per annum, 75,000 jobs per annum. And of course, anything's better than where we are, but I don't think that's sufficient. I think the big issues are still not being grappled with in a bold and new way, with sufficient leadership has to take place in order to get the insiders, if you like, to move to include more and more people in our economy.
And I want to talk about that, Anne, because just ahead of this conference or summit, you said that if those structural components of this economy is not fixed or changed or shifted, you're unlikely to see that sustained absorption that the economy can do to absorb labor. I mean, some of them include, for example, just making it easier and less costlier for business to employ the millions of people that are unskilled in South Africa into the economy. Anything there that you've seen that might convince you that's happening?
Well, listening to the speech, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear anything that changes the structure of employment, encourages employers to employ more people. It's one thing to ask them to do it, it's another to be realistic about the kinds of choices companies that are struggling in the current economic environment have to take. So I didn't hear anything about policy change in that respect. I didn't hear anything about policy change with respect to our collective bargaining system or the labour market. And I didn't hear anything, maybe I'm wrong, I didn't hear anything about how we're going to help small businesses start up and survive in South Africa by exempting them from a whole lot of regulations that currently make it very difficult, and that's why the numbers are declining. So I don't think there was much on policy. This is a beginning of something. We'll wait for tomorrow for more detail, but in terms of the scale of the unemployment challenge, the depth of the growth crisis, this was the insiders talking to each other, and as the President kept saying, we want consensus, we want consensus. Well, actually, I think sometimes you've got to push, almost break the consensus, because after all, that's what we've been getting all along. We've got to move forward. We've got to take some bold decisions to double or treble the size of this economy and make it much more labour intensive. I didn't hear that.
Do you not get any hope from, or you're not convinced by the President saying that these initiatives could possibly create a multiplier effect, because they are indeed pilot initiatives? Does that sound convincing to you?
I wasn't clear exactly what that meant. So, we have a controversy over land reform where the President and the country are going to tamper with the Constitution, which puts property rights at risk. At the same time, we're talking about putting lots and lots of small farmers to work so that they'll be more efficient and we'll bring more land into the economy. Terrific. I'm in favour. How do we do that? And part of the President's dilemma is that he has a weak and corrupt state. So who will implement that? How will you select who gets there? I support the President in his new language and his wanting to involve business more. That's good for South Africa, but you have to change the laws. You have to change the business environment so that people want to invest in the country. That's going to drive this. So the jobs crisis is very big, and it would be unrealistic to expect the agreement tomorrow to dramatically fix everything. That would be completely unrealistic. But I'm looking for signals on scale. I'm looking for signals to firms to encourage them in the normal course of doing business, that we want them to expand, and we're going to make it easier for them to hire workers, especially inexperienced young workers, not artificially, but as part of growing their business. And I'm looking for how we change the environment in which small firms can start up and prosper. So the good thing is, this is the start of a process, and it will be one of the President's priorities. I think that's what he's promising us. That's good. We'll see tomorrow's agreement, but so far I haven't heard how we're going to change the South African legal and policy environment to make us a more hospitable place in which to risk your money and do business, expand your firm, and employ lots and lots more people. I'm not hearing that yet.
And Bernstein from the Centre of Development and Enterprise, thanks very much for giving us that initial reaction.
By the way, I'm not a doctor, for the record.
Thanks for setting that straight, and thanks very much indeed. So tell us, there you go, not perhaps the best of sort of convincing responses you would have wanted to hear from this speech.
Yeah, very interesting take there by Ann Bernstein there. Thank you so much. Devin Murugan out in Midrand for us following that jobs summit.